I want you to go ahead and think about this and then come back with your answer. Who do you think has won the early stages of the offseason? It's not over. There's still a lot of things that could unravel in the next several days, especially in Tuscaloosa, in Tucson, in Seattle, that could drastically change the way that we view the early stages of the offseason. But who do you think is the biggest winner going into mid January? My answer is Ohio State. Let me go ahead and explain. But if you are new here, well, welcome on into the channel, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. Simply because the clock has struck zero on 2023, it does not mean that we are going away anytime soon. We got live shows coming up this week. We got a banner. We're going to recap 2023, a look ahead at 2024. So if this is what you need to survive 7 days without college football, why don't you go ahead and smash that subscribe button? Even if you don't need to survive without college football, still smash that subscribe button because we have a ton of great content coming your way. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, your best of bros, the drunk dude passed out in a Publix parking lot about this channel, Ohio State fans and college football aficionados everywhere, because we are in the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. There's been a lot of big time winners at the early stages of the offseason. And I hate it because college football is 24/7. You know that. I know that. Transfer portal never sleeps. NIL collectives are always growing, and money doesn't grow on trees, but their collectives are growing by the minute. And naturally, there's always the terms of looking ahead. So college football is 24/7. And that's why you and I are good friends and why we love this type of stuff. But who has won the offseason at the early stages? You could say Ole Miss because of what they've added in via the transfer portal to fortify their roster as now the next big time team in the SEC. You could say Texas. They retain their head coach. They retain their starting quarterback. They've added in names that are going to be difference makers from the jump, and they're coming off of another top 5 recruiting class. You could say Oregon falls into that category. Oregon was a minute away from potentially losing Dan Lanning close to most circles, but it turns out he was sitting on his couch watching Jason Bourne with his son and very content staying in Eugene. Not to mention they added in 2 quarterbacks instead of 1 for the price of literally nothing, and a game-changing wide receiver in Evan Stewart to replace Troy Franklin's production. All of those are sufficeable answers, but what about Ohio State? Why isn't Ohio State the first inclination that comes to your mind? Well, probably because a lot of you are saying to yourself, well, Ryan Day was born on third base with the silver spoon in his mouth, and he hasn't really been able to produce since. Been to a national championship during a COVID-19 season, been to countless college football playoff appearances, has nothing really to show for it, but this guy is probably why you're tuned off by Ohio State. Let me go ahead and flip the axis for you. JJ McCarthy no longer is calling the shots in Ann Arbor. You no longer have Blake Corum ready to terrorize your defensive front inside the red zone. Yes, they are bringing back Donovan Edwards, and yes, they are still having Colston Loveland at tight end, but you're losing Roman Wilson in the process. And you don't know what you're doing at quarterback, and you don't know the situation going on with your head coach. Jim Harbaugh took an interview with the Los Angeles Chargers, and maybe he'll meet with the Las Vegas Raiders too. And if one of those teams pries him away, well, the persona of Michigan changes. They still will be a great team in college football. In fact, you can make an argument they're going to be a top 10 team in college football simply because the standard's set by all of those who follow the maize and blue. But you don't know what you're getting at the 2 most influential positions in the sport. And you also don't know who's improving. You don't know what you're going to get from Oregon. You don't know if Jed Fish's up-tempo offense will translate to Seattle like it did in Tucson for Washington. You don't know what you're getting with Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley at USC, and you have no idea what the hell's going on at UCLA. Not to mention, Penn State still has questions with a brand new offensive coordinator. Wisconsin kind of struggled last season to where we all thought Luke Fickell was going to come in and immediately make this program that much better. Nebraska still is going through the early stages of their tenure underneath Matt Rule. And outside of maybe a breakout sensation like Jonathan Smith and East Lansing, who's the team to beat? When you look at the teams that are winners of the offseason, they all kind of have something in common. Retaining talent, but transfer portal. You look at a place like Ole Miss, adding in Princey Umanli Ellen, and then they add in Walter Nolan, and they also added Logan Dix from LSU. Those are good names, household names, staples for your team that are going to only bolster your situation of winning in the SEC. Look at Texas right now. They went out and they added in Andrew Mbuka from Clemson and Matthew Golden and Silas Bolden. And they also added in Trey Moore and now another linebacker from Alabama. Like, they've added in players, but you don't know what you're going to get in those players. You know they're good, but what are they going to be for you? You know what they were before. It's like when you talk about free agency in the NFL or in the MLB. You sign a player to a lucrative contract, and it all depends on what they do during that one season if you believe you invested your money properly. It's the same thing when it comes to the transfer portal about adding in these type of names. Maybe they will be household super studs in a bigger conference where it just means more. Or maybe they'll collapse and they will be just another run-of-the-mill player that thought the grass was greener on the other side. You don't worry about if the grass is greener in Columbus right now. You know it's very green. You know that you have a ton of talent. And you also know what's being returned is exceptional. We already did a video about this, so I won't spend a lot of time. But when you look at just simply the name or two that could have came back to Ohio State, you were excited. You would have bet the lottery. You would have driven 100 miles an hour throughout the entire interstate, and you would have thought that you were on top of the world. Because if 11-2 is good, 12-0 is a little bit better. 12-1 is even a little bit better because that probably means you made it to the college football playoff. But you can survive with 11-2. But 11-2 is not going to be the case next year. Not when Emeka Egbuka is coming back, and not when Lathan Ransom is coming back, and Jack Sawyer is coming back, and JT Tuilamalau is coming back. And also you look at guys like Travion Henderson, and you look at the offensive line what they're retaining. And then you say to yourself, well, what else can we do? Well, maybe you upgrade at quarterback with a guy in Will Howard who is a bit more mobile than Kyle McCord and still has the same amount of accuracy with a bountiful bunch of wide receivers. And you fortify your run game by doubling down and saying we mean business by bringing over Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. And so now the offensive personnel is going to look the same. The one that was good enough to get you to 11-0 going into week 13. The defense is going to be as fundamentally sound because Jim Knowles is getting most of his players back. And he's even upgrading a little bit, in my opinion, with Cody Simon coming in over Steel Chambers. And you really like the direction this team is headed, especially with their schedule. I've already said this before. I believe that Ohio State, going into next season, has an argument to be the top team in college football, simply based off returning talent, because you don't wonder what these players could be. You already know what they are. Now you wonder, what more do they have to prove? What's the next level they can hit? It's like when you level up in a video game, like on World of Warcraft or whenever you're playing with Pokemon. Like, what's the next stage that they can hit? Do they learn a new power, or do they kickstart something that was completely different? Do they start making players miss in the open field? And are they now looking like about as clean cut as a probable national champion you ever saw? Ryan Day's facing a lot of pressure. And now that a new athletic director is walking in and Ross Bjork from Texas A&M, nothing is promised. You know, you look at the names that were there in College Station forever, and I'm not talking about the Jimbo Fisher thing. That's a whole different scandal that we do not have time for tonight. But I look at the names that were added in. When Ross was there, he wanted to implement his style, his culture. And he also understands you have to do things a certain way. That's just the way that he spoke. And I have a relationship with him. And I can tell you, he's as authentic when it comes to setting a standard for a program as possible because he wants to win. And so if you're Ryan Day, 3 consecutive losses in the game, no national championships to prove for it, and you got a brand new AD coming in, you're on thin ice. You are feeling the pressure, and the ice is slowly melting because the sun's coming out, and the sun is not a bunch of sums to keep you employed. It's actually a lot of concerns. This is a good team. In my opinion, they won the offseason because they realized that they were done playing second fiddle to Michigan, and they want to go out on top. With what's coming back, plus what was added in on the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal, I don't know how you look at Ohio State and not say, that's a team that means business. That's a team that's turning up the temperature in the Big Ten and telling everybody, hey, you want to go ahead and mess around? Best of luck to you. You're about to find out what Big Ten football really is and what we do. Like the Vanderbilt kid, when he decided to tell Alabama fans, Alabama, you're next. You'll know what SEC football is. That's Ohio State, but they can actually do it. Ohio State can actually go out of their way and make these type of moves happen. So I look at them as a winner. I think that there are a few teams that absolutely have an argument, But when you already have a proof of concept and most of those players being retained, I think that you walk away victorious. Ohio State, they should be number one in the Big Ten polls. They should be number one among Big Ten teams in the AP rankings. And they should be the favorites to win the conference title and make it to the college football playoff. And if they don't, Ryan Day's got more to worry about than simply a bunch of message boards cursing his name for not beating Michigan. He actually has a little bit more of a hot seat to wonder on. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.